Welcome back. I'm with Carlton Palmer. Hope you enjoyed the first half. I'm sure the second half is going to be a cracker as well. Normally at this point, I remind you it's a live show on a Thursday evening here on Sheffield Live TV. I've got to come clean and admit that this is a recorded show on this occasion, because by the time this goes out, Carlton will be back at his new home, or home for most of the year, in Shanghai in China. So it's a little bit earlier in the week, shall we say. It's certainly before the Tuesday night games, before Sheffield Wednesday against Chesterfield in the League Cup. Yeah. No idea what the result of that is. We can talk about their first league game of the season and the QPR game at the weekend. And no James Gregg either for that reason, as we don't have any kind of action to round up. It's a one-man show, Carlton.
Yeah.
Just you.
That's all right.
You and your book, which comes out on September the 30th, and you can speak for Africa, as they say. Yeah. You've always been able to, though, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I've never been short of a word or two.
No, no, which is why we can more than fill the show. We talked about Howard Wilkinson and man management in the first part of the show. There was one story I remember appropriately, you were telling me this over a pint, where Howard, being a bit of a psychologist, getting the best out of you and other players. Before we go on to that story, you're talking about how he resolved that clash between you and Gary McAllister at Leeds by getting Gordon Strachan involved and all of you together. Just round that up, finish that off.
So what he did was, you know, Gordon's a strong character as well.
Yeah.
So what he would do is, if on a Saturday he was going to play a certain way, the tactics and whatever, he would get us all in and talk to us and, you know, Gordon, you got anything to say? Gary, you got anything to say? Carlton, you got everything to say?
And you always had.
We all three of us had, but then we would go out as the strong members of the team with one verse of what was going on, and we were all on side with it. And so then he knew the rest of the boys then would be on side with that. It was great man management.
And that's how we sorted out. You talked out your differences with Gary McAllister. What a superb player. And we didn't mention, I've just realised, all the wonderful, fabulous players that you played for, not least at Sheffield Wednesday, Chris Waddle, who, you know,
well, you can't,
stood out.
Well, you will see when you read the book what I think of Chris Waddle, not just as a football player, as a bloke. I remember the first day when they bought him from Marseille, and he came into a football club, and the first thing he said to me, he said, everybody talks about your running, Carlton. He says, you're actually a better passer on the football than most people. Get on the ball and play. And that's one of the first things that Chris Waddle has said to me. In the book, I mentioned two players that I call geniuses. And they're the only two players that I have played with that I can call genuine football genius: Paul Gascoigne and Chris Waddle. He's just a phenomenal football player. But he was, you know, he came at what age? He came to Sheffield Wednesday and won sports writers.
He was 30 odd, wasn't he?
Yeah,
when he came
and
there.
won sports writers.
92, 91, 92.
Yeah, and won sports writers, player of the year.
Yeah.
Tremendous bloke, you know, down to earth, and loved football. As you know, he still plays on a Saturday and Sunday now.
He plays for Hallam FC veterans team. Yeah, you could still be playing as well. I mean, you've had approaches in the last couple of years before your heart surgery, even when you were in your late 40s.
To play.
To play. Yeah. No names, no petrol on that.
No.
Let's just come back to that story, because I remember this. You telling me this, and I remember having the discussion with you and saying, "Hey, you should write a book."
Yeah.
And it was at the time you were saying, "No, I don't fancy it." For some reason, you didn't hit the ground running, did you, at Leeds? Am I right there?
Well, no, it wasn't. I didn't hit the ground running. What happened was when I signed for Leeds United, Howard Wilkinson had heard all the stories about my drinking.
All true.
Well, I mean, some of the stories that fly about. I mean, I say, like, Lucy and I have a bit of banter about this, because she says, well, every time I saw you, you were out drinking. So I said, well, if every time I was out and you saw me drinking, then you had to be out as well. And so I managed to reverse psychology. No, I mean, some of the stories that are bandied around, you've got to remember, you know, on my days off, or on a Saturday and we haven't got a game till Wednesday, I would be out on a Saturday night and I'd go out for Sunday lunch. But, you know, before games or whatever, you know, pre-season, didn't drink. But what happened was, when I signed for Leeds United, Howard had heard all the stories, and he knew us as fit as a fiddle, but he just said to me at the time, he said, have you ever thought about not drinking? And he said, you know, it's something you need to think about, because that will prolong your career. You play late into your 30s. So I hadn't really thought about it in any specific length, but I don't drink in pre-season anyhow. So I thought, right, you know, I'll extend it and see how I go. And I was fit. I was probably in the best shape of my life, but I couldn't play. I just couldn't play no matter what I did. It was just, nothing was happening. So the season started and I was poor. And, you know, Howard's paid all this money for me. And
what was it from memory? Was it 2.6 or something?
I think it was about 2.8, 2.9 million.
2.8 million.
Yeah.
Big fee in those days.
It was a second highest transfer fee.
Yeah.
Alan Shearer went just before for 3.2, I think.
Yeah.
So it went on for about 4 or 5 games. Just wasn't happening. So Howard called me in. It's a massive game. We've got coming up the derby game against Man United, and he basically said to me, "Carlton, what's going on?" And I said to him, "Boss, I don't know." I said, I'm training hard. He says, "I know you're training hard." You know, I said, "I'm doing all the right things, boss. I just can't play. I don't know what's happening." So he says, "Well, what are you doing differently?" I said, "I'm not doing anything differently, Gaffer." I said, "I'm not doing anything." I said, "The only thing I haven't done is I've done what you said. I've stopped drinking." Oh, he said, right. So he opened the fridge and gave me a can of lager. He said, "Well, you're not playing Saturday, so we'll get back on it." So it was amazing. I went out that night and got drunk, played in the reserves on Wednesday. Everything was normal service resumed, back in the first team Saturday, and that was it. Yeah. Never stopped drinking since.
Yeah, well, I know. What works for you works for you.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether it's the edge from drinking.
It's more not recommending this, by the way, but it's just.
But I don't know whether it's the edge from drinking that you kind of like. I was fit as a fiddle, and so it wasn't going to affect me playing. Oh. It would never. I would never. And maybe if it had affected me playing, I would have done something about it. But because it never affected me playing, it just became part of a...
You used to drink before matches sometimes,
Yeah. I used to go, Rising Sun on a Friday night, I go in and have a couple of pints of Guinness, and I'll tell you what, I used to have a couple of pints of Guinness and go home and have a sleep. And Howard used to know when we used to go to games, he used to say to me, you know, "If you want to drink, no problem." He knew I wouldn't, you know, take it too far. Yeah. But, you know, I used to have a couple of pints of Guinness, relax and have a sleep. And you know, and that's what worked for me.
I was at a dinner recently. Chris Waddle told a similar story about his time at Spurs and Terry Venables, and Venables calling him in about the fact that he went on a scoring streak, saying, "What are you doing? Because we need to know what you're doing before these games." And he said he was going out and having 2 or 3 pints of Guinness and going back for a sleep, say ahead of an evening game.
Yeah.
But you, if I'm not wrong, I think you were known to go out at lunchtime before a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, weren't you?
Yeah.
I've been known to.
Yeah, been known to. Yeah, been known to. Yeah. Well, but before, like say now, when you hearing in the book, like so, what happened is I used to get ready, so when the bell would go, Bob Gorrell and all the sponsors, they'd have me brandy lined up in there. My brandy, I used to go in the sponsors' lounge, neck the brandy down. And I used to say to him, "I'll see you back in an hour and a half to come and collect my Man of the Match award," and then go and play. And more than likely, I was back to get the Man of the Match award as well.
Terrific. There's lots more stories where this came from in the book, not least of Ron Atkinson, who I remember in 2 spells dealing with him at Sheffield Wednesday, and a wonderful character. And he wasn't what we thought he would be, you know, very impressive as a man as well as a manager. And instantly, on meeting people, would know their names. Like a couple of hours later, he'd say, "Alan." So you think, God, I've only just met this guy.
He's sharp. Yeah. Very sharp. And you on football trivia or anything like that, there's not a cat and mouse chance you catch him out. No, it's very sharp. He was, you know, as you'll see, as I say, I don't want to give too much away, but in the book you can see I respond to father figures. Howard was known me since I was, Ron had known me since I was 15 years of age. So he's like a second father to me. Same with Howard, father figure. Yeah. So I respond to father figures. You know?
But that relationship continues to this day, because you go to Ron's and have dinner with him, with the family, etc.
Yeah, very close close to Ron. He gave me something that you can never. He gave me what made my career. He gave me confidence. He believed in me, and so he made me believe in me. He made me believe in what I did, how I did it, and what I did. He used to say, "Well, you do that, John Sheridan does that, Chris Waddle does that, but you do that and nobody does that better than you. And that's what he did. He gave me loads of confidence. That's why people think it's arrogance, people think it's whatever it is, but most top sportsmen have this air of arrogance, right?
Yeah.
But it's arrogance in belief, because there's plenty of people who want to knock you. There's plenty of people, you can find them 10 to a penny people want to knock you down.
Yeah.
So then when you come back at them with your perceived arrogance, right, they don't like that. No. But that's your front, and that enables you to go and do what you do.
Okay, and you did what you did extremely successfully, both at Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds, before that at West Brom, then for Southampton, and for England, 18 caps. And, you know, one of the great sadnesses of recent times has been the sudden death of Graham Taylor. And I don't think people in the game realise what a wonderful guy, because I happen to know him as well, not as well as you, what a wonderful guy Graham Taylor was, and sadly until he died. And then you realise from the warmth and the wealth of tributes, just what a fantastic guy.
I mean, unfortunately for me, but it is stated in the book. The book was done before Graham Taylor died. So you'll see there's a chapter in there about Graham Taylor in England, and that was actually wrote before he died. Graham Taylor got a lot of bad press. The media destroyed him because he was too honest with the media. And they ridiculed him, not like they did. I mean, the press tried to pull themselves away about it. When somebody, you know, I'm not an hypocrite, and like I said, when I had the heart scare and people were texting me, I used to say to Lucy, you know, I don't want people to text me and say, all the best, Carlton. When you know, I know I'm ill, but I don't need you. We don't get on, so you don't need to text me. I don't like people like that. Just be straight as it is. Do you know what I mean? So Graham Taylor, the press were, you know, all of the press, it's a bit hypocritical coming out and saying the nice things about him. Say the nice things about him when he was about at the time. The man done brilliant for, you know, he's the Watford, the community. He's a stand-up guy. He was an honest guy. And they abused a man. I mean, you know, he lost a football match. He didn't kill anybody, but yet he's on the front of the newspapers with a turnip on his head.
Unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable. I'm a journalist. I'm ashamed of that.
No, it was about, and you know what? If people actually, and you know, we all make mistakes, and Graham made mistakes. But if you actually, you know, the time with Gary Lineker, and I played in that game when he took Gary Lineker off. He didn't take Gary Lineker off to stop Gary Lineker from breaking records. No. He took Gary Lineker off only thinking about winning the football match. You know. He did things that, you know, right for football reasons.
And he was pilloried for picking you as well.
Well, he was, but the argument that people stand with me, it doesn't stand up. Sheffield Wednesday at the time was in the top 3 clubs in the Premier League, right? Yeah. So if you're in the top 3 clubs in the Premier League, it stands to reason that those players are going to get picked for their country. So there was no argument. I was one of the best midfield players in the country at that time. Yeah. And I was disappointed not to get picked for England before. But like I said in the book, and you'll see Terry Venables, I knew when Terry Venables took over that I'd never play for England again because Terry's in with the media. But yeah, I get on with Terry really well. But I knew I would never play for England again for that reason, because you know, and I put it in the book, no disrespect to Gareth Southgate, 65 England caps, right? Yeah. Now, if both of us were to be on the open market today, and we were both up for grabs, I'd like to think that most people would pick me to take over Gareth Southgate. And I'm not saying Gareth Southgate wasn't a good player, but he wasn't better than me, and he wasn't better than Gary Pallister.
No. One thing to point out about you, Carlton, in your ongoing career as a pundit is, unlike some, without criticising them, you have been a manager as well.
Yes.
You had spells at Stockport County and Mansfield Town, so you know about management, the difficulties, what it's about. Yeah. And so when you criticise now and when you praise what's going on, you have done everything in the game. You have seen it all. Yeah. So let's have a look at the Sheffield scene and how the season started. We're only talking one league game in. Sheffield United have beaten Brentford 1-0 at home. Didn't surprise me. No. I know it didn't surprise you either.
No, he's got momentum. I'm a big fan of Chris Wilder. He's learned his trade the right way. He's in control of his situation in clubs, and he chooses his clubs very carefully, so he has that control. And it's very difficult, as you said, I have managed before, and it's very difficult if you're not in control of the circumstances in that football club. Because the one thing you can't come out, like say for instance now, is I'm manager of Mansfield Town. My budget 630 grand. The fans want you to be in the playoffs. Well, the budget for those clubs in the playoffs is 1.5 million, but I can't come out and say we're not going to be in the playoffs. So the only thing for sure is, unless you're given time, you're going to get the sack. Yeah. So it's very difficult, but Chris manages his situation, and because he, in turn, be successful with it, he's in control. He knows what he wants, and he knows, and I'm 100% convinced that Sheffield United will be there or thereabouts this season. They'll definitely make the playoffs. They'll definitely make the playoffs. He's got momentum. He's got a strong, solid, believing squad that's carrying on from last season. And the Championship, whilst it's a different step up, for me, half the teams in the Championship are well beatable. Well beatable.
Despite the huge fees that are being paid, £10 million is becoming the norm. Wolves bought somebody for 15 million.
Exactly. So half the teams in that division, you know, there'll be, you know, Championship or Division 1, you know, much of a muchness, right? Yeah. So then you're looking at that top teams, the 3 teams that have come down. The teams who were missed out last year, Reading and Sheffield Wednesday, you're looking at that. So they'll be there or thereabouts.
We'll come on to Sheffield Wednesday, because there's no getting... I don't know what the result was against Chesterfield, because this is recorded, as we explained earlier. No getting away from it. It was a hugely disappointing start to the season, a 1-0 defeat at Preston. Carlos Carvalho not accepting it, the performance, understanding the fans' frustration. It didn't come as a huge surprise to me, I have to say, without being pessimistic, because there hasn't been a degree of churn in the squad this summer, for whatever reason. And it's hard to say that the chairman's funded a lot of, you know, signings. Carlos Carvalho has had 2 good years in the playoffs. He's done well. What for you needs to happen there?
It's difficult because, like I've said to you, unless you're privy to what's going on with Carlos and the chairman, you know,
they've got a good relationship.
Yeah, no, I believe so. And I think last year when Carlos went through a bad patch and it looked like he was going to be outside the playoffs, the chairman stood by him.
Yeah, which is great.
And there can be no getting away from the fact that I think Carlos has done a tremendous job. From where Sheffield Wednesday were, he's brought the club on. But then you get into a situation now where the chairman is putting the money there, he's doing that. This year he has to deliver. He has to deliver.
I think he knows that.
No,
I think we all know he has to deliver this season.
He has to deliver. Now, whether there is, Alan, an hangover from the end of last season, which does sometimes happen, that Huddersfield game, you know, with all due respect, Carlos got it wrong. He went to Huddersfield and they played, in my opinion, they should have got beat on the day. They actually defended very, very well and the goalkeeper was brilliant, but they didn't go, and it was over 2 legs. And I think if you look at the first season, when they went and they lost in the playoff final against Hull, they actually overachieved. So, and he did a great job in getting them to the playoffs. But then, because they overachieved, the confidence going into the following season was there.
Yes.
The problem is now, I think that in that players' minds, they should have done better. They should have got to the playoff final, and I think if they go to the playoff final, they get promoted. Seeing Huddersfield get promoted, knowing that they're beaten twice in the season, it's in here. Yeah. So unless you change those players around, you've got a problem. Yeah. So what Carlos has got to do now, in my opinion, listen...
and with the window still open.
Well, it's difficult because he's got the system he's playing at the moment, for me, he's got no pace in the side, and we need, dare I say, a Carlton Palmer in the middle of the park, right? Sam does a great job, but Sam spends a lot of time out the team because he's injured. Semedo was injured before him, right? Yeah. We need a strong... You look at Burnley. Burnley have given you a blueprint on what to do. Sean Dyche. He's done it, and he's done it with a small squad of players. They were big, they were robust, they were fit. So when they, you know, if you look at when they got promoted, a lot of the games they were winning really late on. After 60, 63 minutes, they scored a lot of goals, and he's carried that on into the Premier League with just adding a little bit of quality. We're lacking that. Hull the year before it was men against boys, and we're lacking a little bit of that. There's no pace in the side, right? We've got strikers, in my opinion, who'll score goals. Rhodes will score goals, Hooper will score goals. Got to get the ball in the box.
Yeah. Yeah, and people were saying that towards the end of last season, or for half the season as well. The dynamics of it are, you know, we were having a conversation off air earlier today about how Arsene Wenger is the last of the total control managers in the Premier League. And Carlos Carvalho, I think Wednesday fans need to understand, is head coach with responsibility to you know, pick the right team and work with what he's got. He hasn't got the final say on transfers. He can't decide to sell a player to bring another player in.
Well, this is the problem when you've got the current system that you've got now, where you've got the manager who's really just a coach. That becomes a problem.
He recommends, and there's a big influence. So people need to understand it's not just him, you know, it's a joint thing.
Yes, but I agree with that. But if you look at that squad of players that he's got, right, they've got to be in the top 4. So whatever he's got to do now, whether it's change his system, whether it's, you know, freshening it up by chucking in, say, a young Gerst, and everybody's vilifying for that, but sometimes it happens. Fergie did it, and I remember Alan Hansen saying, you're not going to win anything with kids. Chucked in a young Scholes, and it just freshened things up a little bit. So players who might be a little bit comfortable, who think they're going to play every week, all of a sudden they're out of team. You might lose a couple of games. If you remember when Chris Wilder went in there, was it United? They lost 4 out of the first 6 games?
They lost 2 or 3 of the first. They were bottom of the table after 4 games, actually.
And then basically run away with it.
But he changed the system.
Exactly.
He changed the system from 4-4-2 to 5.
No, 4-3-3. Right.
Well, he kind of going to play 5 at the back with 2 pushing on.
So you know,
3-5-2. Yeah. Say 3-5-2.
But he changed. He looked at it and then he went on. So you know, but he's got to do it now, Carlos. You know, he doesn't want pressure to mount on him, and people shouldn't forget the job he's done. I think because it was pretty dire before. Yes. So the last 2 years he's brought some out. But the problem he's got now is that in me saying what I'm saying about Sheffield United, and if I'm correct in what I'm doing, that it's going to put pressure on the chairman and pressure on Carlos. If when it comes to Derby Day, they've got promoted and they're ahead of Sheffield Wednesday in the league. There's going to be a problem.
That's another ingredient to it. But as you say, Sheffield United have got that momentum of achievement. They carry it on. And Sheffield Wednesday, it's very difficult to challenge 3 successive years with virtually the same set of players, isn't it?
No, it is difficult. You need to.
There's a fizzle-out effect a little bit there.
Well, if you, Alex Ferguson has always said.
50 seconds.
Yeah, sorry, but Alex Ferguson has always said if you don't rotate the players in a football club, then you have to go as a manager because the players get bored of listening to the same thing all the time.
It doesn't matter how much money you've got to bring players in. Even the wealthiest clubs do sell players from time to time, and there hasn't been that at Wednesday. Although the chairman's more than delivered and he's more than committed, and he really has put his money where his mouth is. You can't say he hasn't. Carlton, it's been fantastic.
Great to see you.
To see you again. All the very best with the book.
Thank you.
It is what it is. It's out at the end of September from Vertical Editions. I'm sure it'll be a must-read, and not just for fans of Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds United. Thanks very much, Carlton. Thank you for joining us. This show will be on my YouTube channel as ever if you missed it. It's not to be missed. See you next week.